Hello and welcome to another episode of The Scientist Hay Farmer. Today we are going to be replacing some plastic covers on the bearings of my feeder tine drive. Let's check out what we've got going on. Oh, P.S. This is on my new Holland 311 baler. This is the feeder tine drive right here. It drives the feeder tines. There are two bearings that run along this track. These bearings have this black plastic cover here, which is very critical to maintaining the spacing and basically making sure the machine doesn't just blow apart. If this fails, it can be catastrophic. Send it right out the side. I've heard people say has happened before. So let's get this all taken apart here, and I'll show you how I do that later and get these replaced. First, I just remove the spring from there, so this is not tied up to anything. It can be removed. Then I'm just gonna take this bolt out that goes here, the nuts over here. Just a little catch up here before I get too ahead of myself. So this plate sets in here like this, slides under there. I removed that bolt and nut there, took that out. There's actually supposed to be a nut and bolt, or well, a bolt that goes up through here too and screws into this plate right in there. My baler was missing that all together, so it wasn't pinching down on this, which is why it had so much lateral movement this way. And then I removed the nut on the other side of this to get this bolt out, but I got to get it out of this track because there's not enough room. So I went ahead and took the carriage bolts off the track. There's 3 right there. This was actually busted, so I got to weld that back together. And then there's a little bolt right back at the top up there that I removed. And now this track is free and I can get it out of my way to get to this. Even with that track out, still have a heck of a time moving that. This nut has been rubbing on the inner side. There's a whole bunch of bad stuff that's going on in here that I'll show you later. See, even the edge of that bolt was rubbing. Now this thing here should just be able to pull out. Let's see if I can get that out or not. There we go. Now with that out of the way, we can slide these bearings out. Oops. Slide the bearing out. Slide the collar off. I put a little bit of PB Blaster in there to help it off. Come over here. Slide this bearing out. Slide that collar off. Well, that collar doesn't actually need to come off. It can stay right there. All right. Let's take a look at something. So these are your old parts here. See how thin that bearing's worn down? And this is the new bearing right here. Not the bearing, the cover. So pretty worn down. That gives you a whole bunch of extra slop and play in there, which I had. I didn't even show what that was at the beginning, but this had a lot of lateral movement side to side. So good to get these things on. New Holland's pretty proud of these suckers. They're not cheap, but you gotta have them. Well, I did find an older video that shows how much play and slop I did have in there, so this is the before. These plastic caps were not the easiest to remove from these bearings. I ended up putting this one in a vise and kind of tapping the cap off with a hammer, but they do eventually come off. Now, supposedly, first of all, these bearings are good. They roll smooth. I'm not going to replace them. There's nothing wrong with them. However, supposedly, this is a Timken 6203 2RS bearing is what this is. And I've seen on forums before where guys say you can just press this bearing off this and replace it with this. Of course, you gotta have a shop press, which I do. And I use it all the time, by the way. But this is what this looks like from the back. So it looks like this is the entire structure right here, this piece and this big, I don't know, it looks like a washer thing on the back. You would have to press this out right here while supporting the rest of your bearing. And then your new bearing would press on right to the top. Now, I'm not gonna replace these bearings, but if you're to do that, these bearings I think are about, it was either 12 bucks a piece or, yeah, I think they're about 12 bucks a piece. And these were 20 some dollars. If you buy this entire assembly from New Holland, it's over 60 bucks. So this is a good way to save some money. If you do have a shop press, just press on a new bearing, press this one off. I'm not gonna do that. What I am gonna do is replace these caps. Again, those are two new ones. Just to show you the difference and what a worn down cap does on this side versus this side. So I'm sure I probably want to coat the insides of these caps with some grease. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna cheat and just do a little PB blaster in there. Just to give it something kind of lubed up. I may not be able to press this in. I think I'm gonna have to kind of go tap it on with a hammer. As it turns out, these are annoyingly difficult to get in. So, shop press it is. There we go. So now we begin the task of getting this all put back together. Go ahead and slip that on. Slip my new bearing in there. Those will be adjusted, but for now, I'm just going to get that in there to hold its place. Since that is the original place that it was on, I'm guessing it will probably be good for the next time around too. I'll come back in and tighten that up. Get my next guy on. This guy put back in. This would be the tricky part. Next, put this long bolt back through there. Keep track of all the washers Sorry if you ride motorcycle, but they are so freaking annoying. Keep track of your washers and the way they came off for each side. I'll replace this nut on the other side. On this other side, on my machine at least, one washer, one on. Nope, I did that backwards. There were 3 washers that actually went on. And then the spacer. And then another washer. And then the nut. I'm going to replace that nut. I'm going to get a different nut on there. Tighten that down later. Next, just have to get this spring around that. So I rotated the tine arm up a little higher so it went up this ramp. Probably should have done this in the very beginning because it makes it much easier because you don't have to fight this thing here. This is all up out of the way. I had to take this all back apart again because there's a bolt that goes under here and screws up into this that I talked about earlier, which clamps this thing shut. And there's a groove in this rod that bolt goes through so it stays on there nice and centered. So now that I got this all taken apart again, I can start to reassemble the way it was intended. I'll get all these tightened up and come back to you here in a little bit. All right, well, I got her all set up. So just a reminder of what I did. I had to take this bolt out, take this. Now it works a lot easier. Don't do like I did and try to take it out all up here. Move it up here to higher on the track so you can get access to all the bolts going in here. Of course, this track will be out without this thing fighting you, which is what was happening to me down here. Once you get over here, that's up in the air, obviously, it's not fighting you. So I got that bolt down under here, which goes up through this, clamps that shut, because before my baler had this shaft was actually rotating in there like that. I was getting a lot of side-to-side movement. This would get all the way over to here, and I was getting a lot of damage from that, which is why like this bolt head or the threads are worn down. If you recall, this is what that bolt head looked like. And then check this out over here too. Focus, look at the side of my feeder tine. Can you see how that's all chewed away? That was rubbing along the edge here. And you can even see, I think right there it was kind of rubbing too. So I will not have that issue anymore because there is a detent in the shaft about halfway through where this bolt feeds up, and you can see the top of the bolt right there, just threads into place. I got that tightened down so it's pinching on there. I got this bolt tightened down here, these bolts tightened down. I did take my collars and I loosened them up and spread these bearings out just a little bit each way like that to get it a little less play in here. So now this is what I've got. It's not even a 1/16 inch worth of play. It's just slightly under. There's a little more play in this area and about the same up in here. So you'll want to run it by hand through the entire range of motion. You know, start down here Go side to side, turn it a little bit so it moves a little farther. Go side to side, a little more, side to side, and all the way up to the top and side to side. Now, when I was at the top, the first time it was binding, these bolts up here are slotted, they're adjustable. So I had to loosen this one and pull this out towards that way so I could widen this gap in here. And I tighten that back down, and then I have a nice range of motion. So here we are again. I was stupid and didn't take a before video. But this was just wobbling all over, and then this was sliding back and forth on that shaft as well. It's nice and clamped down there. Won't get any more rubbing of that feeder tine. Let's hook it up, fire it up, see how it sounds. Guess we can't forget about this guy either. I had to get him welded back up. He can go right there. Okay, that's a wrap. I think we got it, and it's running pretty smooth. My baler didn't blow up when I fired it up, so that's all good. If you find this material useful, go ahead and like it. That helps it in the algorithm, helps others find it. Subscribe if you want to know more. Anyway, that's all I got. I'm gonna have more videos here coming up. Thanks for watching.